All right, everybody. Here we are for episode 98 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. It's been a few weeks since Wayne and I have been doing this podcast.
We're back.
Wayne,
All 7 or 8 of you that listen and download, we are back. No worries. There's no cause for panic.
We apologize for being off a week, as Wayne was sick, so I was by myself the 1 week. He was working the week before that, so I brought my sister and brother-in-law in. And then this last week I was sick, so we just didn't do it this last week. So we apologize for that, but we are almost 100% healthy, getting there anyway. So this week, we've talked about some of these movies before, but we're going to dive into When Animals Attack, and that ties into 2 movies that we were going to review last week that we'll talk about. But first, Wayne, I know before you got sick, we were going to review Ambulance and Emergency. Did you get to watch those 2 films?
Yeah, I did. Ambulance was very, very tense.
Yes.
At times it's kind of head scratchers, if you will. But anytime you got Gyllenhaal, Jake Gyllenhaal. Maggie's good too. Don't get me wrong, but he is pretty much fantastic in everything that he's in, and yes. I think we agree on that. I think you mentioned in the past that he's one of your favorites, if not your favorite. But yeah, here's my one thing that I will say about it. When the cops pull the ambulance over and they had just stolen it, they don't notice the 2 big money bags stacked right there. That was my one thing. My only thing is money's right there. Can't really hide that. So
well, it's Michael Bay, big and dumb. That's how he does it.
Yeah, no, going into it, I'm like, oh great, Michael Bay. Here we go, explosions everywhere, and there was a lot of action and whatnot. But
yeah,
I don't really have anything negative to say other than the couple little things I've quipped about. I thought all of the action was good, the dialogue was good. I don't know about opening up with a sniper rifle on an ambulance with innocents in there, but hey.
I think it's the 2 main leads that really carry that film too. Mateen and Gyllenhaal, like you said, Gyllenhaal is fantastic, and Mateen is really coming into his own, I think. So
yes,
it's a really good showcase for both of them, even though it was just kind of like I said in the episode, a big dumb action movie, but it was a good showcase for 2 good actors to show they can do whatever and make it good.
As far as Emergency goes, I think it would have been better as a slapstick, a comedy, if you will, because it kind of seems like it's setting up that way, and then it's like, oh no, we're dead serious. It's like, So
yeah, I liked it. I liked the tonal change, but you're right. It does have that kind of like a road trip setup to it, and it's not very funny because it's very serious throughout most of the movie.
And I think for me, I set myself up, and I didn't change my mindset quick enough to really, adapt to it. Still great. I enjoyed everything, and decisions, man, decisions. So.
Dude, I was in tears the last 15 minutes of that movie. I couldn't control myself. I was like, Jesus, it's a rough one when you think you're getting a 3 teenager comedy about a couple of guys that are trying to get a girl to the hospital. It really has a lot of serious implications.
Right.
All right, so we'll move on to this week's topic. As I said, we're going to talk about When Animals Attack, and you can't talk about When Animals Attack without starting from the kind of boss of it all.
Right, Anaconda, great film, love it. Just kidding.
J-Lo and Ice Cube doesn't get it. I mean, they started the When Animals Attack genre. Nothing happened before 1997.
Nope.
That would be, obviously, I think as most people would have guessed, Jaws from 1975, which we have talked about a few times because we've talked about monster movies. We talked about Spielberg in overall. So,
right.
This movie it's a classic. The tagline, I'm drawing a blank on it. Safe to go back.
It makes you not want to go in the fucking water, even if it's a pool. You can see the bottom. Well, you never know.
Exactly. It's just one of those films that it's still terrifying, and to this day you watch it, and I think the benefit of, and we've talked about this several times, the shark breaking was an accident, but they made the best of it, and I think with the shark breaking, it made the movie more intense. It makes the movie today stand up better because you don't see the cheesy shark throughout the whole film.
Right.
So it really added to the longevity, I think, of the film.
The unknown terror. That, along with the theme, if you will, of Jaws, and I like it. I always love Jaws because I can tie in one of my favorite movies, The Holiday, into this. Because remember when Jack Black and
Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet are in the blockbuster, hey,
Yeah.
and he's going around talking about the different scores and how they enhance the movie. He's like, Jaws, 2 notes, you've got a villain. It's so dead on because you hear the first note and you just know what's coming, and it's like sense of impending doom, if you will. So
it does, yeah. It's what anybody ever does if they're in the water. I did it when I was playing with my grandkids at the pool a week or so ago. I was down it. Like, you just do that. It's instinctive. It's drilled into our brains. What other movies have done that where just those 2 notes make you go, oh, Jaws? Like, everybody knows what you're talking about. It's just been in our blood basically since 1975, since it came out. And Spielberg is really, I think in some people's minds, had a hard time overcoming that. Like, he's made so many great movies, but to a lot of people, that's his greatest. And that was one of his first films, not his first film, but one of them, his first biggest film. But he's just, when you come out swinging right away, it's kind of difficult for everyone to, like, oh, I'm supposed to take this movie as the best movie ever made after you did that one.
Just the opening scene where the 2 are going skinny dipping into the water. I presume sunset or whenever. I presume sunset.
Yeah.
And just disappears. It's like, what the hell is happening?
This just the screaming back. It takes that screaming that was kind of known for like Psycho, and slashers weren't really a thing yet. So like Texas Chainsaw had a lot of screaming in it and stuff. And it hits you with that high pitched scream at the very beginning of the movie, and you're like, oh, what is this? And then you don't even get like another shark attack for another 30 or 40 minutes. So it sets the tone, and then it delivers when it kind of lets you calm down a little bit, and then it keeps delivering every time that you feel kind of safe. It keeps hitting you, and I think that's what's beautiful about this movie. It's what makes it stand the test of time. It is truly one of the first, if not the first, blockbuster. That's where the term blockbuster comes from. Is people were lining up around the block to go see Jaws when it came out in 1975. So it makes sense that Steven Spielberg, the man who's been around for so many blockbusters, created the blockbuster. And it's just, again, it's nice to have a film like that that's essentially an animal attack film that has stood the test of time and considered one of the best horror animal attack films, one of the best films of all time, really. And take any genre out of it, it's one of the best films of all time. And I think it's endlessly watchable. That's the other thing about it, is my wife likes to watch. We didn't watch it this Sunday, but a lot of times we put it on Sundays while we eat breakfast. Just one of those movies that we can watch at any given moment, and it's just a great flick. All right, Wayne, is there another one that you wanted to talk about before I get into any of mine here?
I mean, we got to talk about Hitchcock's The Birds.
Yep.
I think, or at least mention it. Pigeons, great, wonderful. They're a nuisance, but crows, I didn't get a chance to watch this movie, but just the terrifying being chased and pecked alive by swarms of killer birds, basically.
Yeah.
The iconic phone booth scene when the main actress
Tippi, right? Tippi Hedren. I think that's her name.
I should have had this pulled up. I apologize for being ill prepared.
I think it's Tippi Hedren.
You are correct. With Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, and a bunch of other folks I don't recognize. So
yeah, it was like back before, like, he was just starting to get recognized for being the terror guy, because it was like right after Psycho.
Right. But yeah, a little breakdown of The Birds real quick here from 1963. A wealthy San Francisco socialite pursues a potential boyfriend to a small Northern California town that slowly takes a turn toward the bizarre when birds of all kinds suddenly begin to attack people. So, I never really thought of birds as a threat or terrifying, if you will. But, thought of being pecked alive by, swarms are something a little unnerving. I've never wanted to eat chicken so much in my life.
Yes. Well, and I think you hit it on the head when you started off the conversation about this movie and the phone booth scene. A lot of this movie, the reason it still works today, because when you look at it effects wise, it's not very good. They're very cheesy. But Tippi Hedren's performance, especially in that phone booth scene, really sells this film and sells the terror. Like, you have to have someone in a movie like this called The Birds, which is essentially a movie about birds attacking people. You have to have a strong actress or actor.
Mm-hmm.
And she really delivered. And I think that's why this particular movie, with its cheesy special effects, is able to stand the test of time, because
Right.
you feel the terror in her. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you get scared from. It's not really the birds, it's the impending doom that she makes you feel throughout that film.
I
She's
often,
fantastic.
sorry, I didn't mean to stumble over
Oh,
you
go
there.
ahead.
I often wonder if M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening is kind of like a mirror of this, because there's really no explanation given in either film.
Yeah.
It's just one is birds, which is a tangible thing with claws and beaks. The other are killer trees.
Which,
So
yeah, but not killer trees in a fun way. Just
no,
like
not
oxygen's all of
Lord
a
of the
sudden.
Rings style.
Yeah.
You shall not pass. I know it's Gandalf, but you know what I mean. The big old I'm Treebeard.
Yes,
So,
it's not in a way where there was a short film from Jason Eisner called Tree Venge, which is about killer trees, and they're actually killer trees.
mhm.
It's not about the scent they give off that drives you crazy or whatever the hell they were
Heck,
trying to
the
do.
the trees in Wizard of Oz are more threatening and
Yes,
menacing. It's like, come on now. Chuck an
exactly.
apple over here. I'm hungry.
So I think you're right. I think M Night, for the tension, was going in the birds direction, but again, it goes to performances. I mean, I love the actors in The Happening. None of them gave a performance like Tippi Hedren's, and none of them really gave a good performance. As we joked about Mark Wahlberg being a science teacher many a times on this podcast.
What? What?
What's happening? I'm a science teacher. Oh,
I think
so,
the one more I want to make sure, and I'm sure it's on your list, but I shudder to think about it. 1990s Arachnophobia.
oh,
God.
one of my personal favorite '90s horror films. I think it still stands up. A buddy of mine thinks the ending is a little cheesy these days, because they do use like a actual like rubber made spider, because 90s again. They didn't want to CGI everything, so it looks a little cheesy. But uh, that one's a dark comedy, Arachnophobia. It's got great performances from Jeff Daniels and John Candy, or not John Candy. Wow,
Goodman.
John Goodman.
Get
Wrong,
your fat Johns correct, sir.
yeah, wrong heavy set John. I apologize.
Hey, but
Um,
Delbert McClintock, his character, yo
oh,
man,
fantastic.
I just
Just
his first like introduction is just like, oh, no problem. Like, oh,
yeah,
but I
bad wood here. Yeah, bad wood.
just the shower scene. Oh god, it's
Oh,
crawling
so
on
good.
me.
The spider crawling into the football helmet. I mean,
Yeah.
they, you know, they handle this movie again. This is what I would consider a dark comedy. When you do a good dark comedy horror film, you have to balance both, and it does a good job of making the spiders very terrifying, and then the funny moments very, very funny and very tense too at times, because a lot of again, as we talk about, a lot of the humor comes from the trauma in these dark horror films, and they do a good dance of having John Goodman be this character who's kind of the levity of the situation, where he, everything's very serious, but he's still very goofy in a certain
Mhm.
sense. Um,
And one of the things that I like, in contrast to what we were talking about with with no explanation of the birds, they tell you exactly what's happening. The spider from South America,
yep,
it mates with a spider in Northern California, and it develops into a super spider, if you will.
yep. Well, it's
Spider
very,
Man.
very Jaws in setup too, because it gives you right away. It shows you what you're in for with the one of the photographer from that town dying. So it gives you the sense of tension immediately, and then it thrusts you into this story of like, okay, it's this guy moving his family to a small town. They're big city people. He's a small town doctor now. Nobody wants to be around him because they trust the old guy. And so it does a good sense of building this tension. And it's one of those movies I just love to watch over and over again. And it's funny because I hate spiders. Everyone that knows me, knows I hate spiders, and I fear spiders. But I guess it's, I always point out, I'm like, yeah, but they die in this movie. So it's like watching them get burned alive is therapeutic for me as someone who hates spiders.
Yeah.
I do want to announce too, it did just get announced it is getting a remake from the creator of Happy Death Day and Freaky, which I'm a huge fan of those movies. So I know a lot of people from my generation were like, oh my God, how dare they? I'm excited because we never got a sequel. I want to see what they're going to do with it. The dude that made those Happy Death Day and Freaky is, to me, one of the best horror comedy filmmakers around right now because all his movies have been really funny and really good. He's got a new one coming out, I think later this year, before he gets to Arachnophobia. So I'm excited for the remake. We'll see what happens. It could be good, it could be bad, but I'm really just glad that somebody is finally taking on this property again.
Well, it's exciting. Part of me is terrified, like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Oh God, I got to watch spiders again. All right, so another one that I don't know if you've seen this one in a while. I've actually been wanting to watch it again lately. The Ghost in the Darkness. It's from 1996. It's directed by Stephen Hopkins. It stars Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas. The screenplay was written by William Goldman, so he's gone on to do many great screenplays. It's the story of Val Kilmer, who's like with his family in Africa, like doing research and stuff, and then there's this killer lion that starts coming after people. And Michael Douglas plays like the notorious hunter that lives in Africa. It's a true story. I'm not sure how true everything that happens in the movie is, but it's one of those movies that I've always really liked. I remember seeing it in theaters in 96, 97 when it came out. It's terrifying. It does a lot of what kind of Jaws does. It shows you early on what's going on, and then it sets you in that moment where you're just kind of waiting for the lion to attack. It's great performances from Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas. Just one of those rare kind of gems I think people maybe forgot about because it doesn't seem to be talked about as much, but it really is, I think, a really good movie. And I want people to see this movie more. Wayne, do you remember this film?
Slightly. I know I've seen it at least once, and I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be like Crocodile Dundee. No.
No, not fun. It's kind of, the one thing about these animal attack movies, I watched them when I was younger, and I didn't watch as much horror films when I was younger as I do nowadays, obviously. These were kind of good gateway horror films because they're not necessarily horror films, or at least they're not only horror films like if it is drama or action or thrillers. But they're really, any animal attack film is essentially a horror film because it's terrifying. And I think these are good gateway films for younger audiences to get into because they're not super gory, really. They're not, like Jaws isn't very gory. It's not terrifying to the idea that you're going to wake up, having like shark dreams or anything. But and same with this one, you're not going to have these weird dreams about lions or anything. But it's a fun kind of get you in that same mentality of a horror film, and that's why I like this genre specifically. I think when I chose this topic, Wayne, I wasn't even sure how many of these movies I really like, and I was like, I really like a lot of when animal attack films. It's just kind of one of those things that they're really good, and or when when they're done right. So definitely, that one's usually streaming somewhere. So seek that one out if you haven't seen it. Another one I've talked about on here several times, and we talked about during the Liam Neeson podcast, was The Gray.
Yes.
And that is one that's kind of like the movie Alive, where they crash and they don't know, they're in the middle of nowhere in the wilderness and it's snowy and they got to survive. But in this case, they add in wolves and they have to survive against like a group of wolves that are circling them. Neeson is fantastic. It's got a great cast like Dallas Roberts and Frank Grillo. Joe Anderson is also in it. Dermot Mulroney. and it's directed by Joe Carnahan, who's done plenty of action films and stuff. And I think people were disappointed when this movie came out, Wayne, because it was billed as the Liam Neeson fights wolves movie. So everyone thought it was going to be this action movie where he goes and he fights these wolves. That's not what happens at all. It ends very ambiguously, which pissed a lot of people off, I think. But it really is. It's a very tense film all the way through. This is unlike Jaws and stuff. You're not kind of sure what you're in for when you see this movie. And I really enjoyed the tension that it builds throughout the film up until the final moment of him fighting the wolves and stuff. It's a really, really great film, and it's kind of something I wish Joe Carnahan would go back to. What are your thoughts on The Grey, Wayne?
When I think of The Grey, the first thing I think of is how beautifully it's shot. Like the cinematography is the highlight for me. Like, the ending and pissed me off. I was like, God, no, I need resolution.
Yep.
But I just assumed the wolves won. So.
Right. I think, and that's the thing is like everyone's mad that, oh, what happened? Well, I could tell you what happened. Yeah. They just didn't want to show you the main character being mauled to death.
I use the same thing when people get pissed off about the end of The Sopranos.
Yep.
Let's think really hard what probably happened, because they tell you at the beginning of the season what's going to happen.
Yep.
So
exactly.
You listen to dialogue and pay attention. Anyway. I digress.
Another one that's more recent that I've talked about is Crawl from 2019 from Alexandre Aja. This is the first R-rated film I took Donovan to. He likes, he also kind of likes these animal films because he likes animals. So he's more or less, I think, rooting for the animals in him, which is not usually who you're supposed to root for. But
attaboy.
Crawl is great because it's got such a good premise that anybody can get into. You're taking a suburban area with a flood like Florida, where there are many alligators in this area, and there happens to be an alligator farm near where this person lives, and the flood sets the alligators loose on this town. And so you're given these two main characters. It's a daughter played by Kaya Scodelario, and a father played by Barry Pepper. They throw some other people in there to be chum later because the alligators got to kill some people. It's a great, intense little film. It only runs 87 minutes. It's basically right from the beginning. It gets you right into the action, and it's an hour and 20 minutes of just you watching these two people try to survive an alligator attack. Really well done, very tense, great performances. Aja is one of those directors. He did The Hills Have Eyes. He did what's the other one that everyone always talks about? I'm drawing a blank on it right now. Give me a second. High Tension. High Tension, the French film. Another one of those like mind fuck movies. Unfortunately, if you start to like peel it apart, it doesn't really stand up, I guess. But it's still a fun movie. I really like High Tension. But he did, he's become one of those guys that can take one of these little premises. His last movie was a very simple premise, and he just kind of like went with it for an hour and 25 minutes. And this one works. It works really well. I've seen it a couple of times now. And it's just a really fun, intense film. Wayne, have you seen this one yet?
Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. So. Well, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's produced by Sam Raimi, who we've talked about on this podcast before. He knows horror, so definitely worth seeing. It did make Donovan jump a few times in the theaters. I like that aspect of it. It's fun sitting next to your son and watching him jump. Is there another one that you wanted to talk about, Wayne?
I mean, we should probably mention Cujo.
Oh yeah, we did talk about that one, but that's a great flick.
Just I don't know, just go through honorable mentions, or I don't know how many more you got. So
we'll go on Cujo real quick. So Cujo is interesting because it's another one similar to Birds that is settled on this performance.
Right.
Dee Wallace's performance in this film is what sells this film, because literally the last 50 minutes of the movie is a boy and a mom in a car being attacked by a giant Saint Bernard. It's intense. It's scary. It makes you feel claustrophobic because you're stuck in this car with them, the way it's shot and stuff. I don't think this movie gets enough respect. It's so intense, man. That last 50, 40 minutes of this movie, you're just on the edge of your seat, and literally this small, tiny like scene, and you're like, are they going to survive? Again, the screaming is a huge part of it because you get Dee Wallace just like screaming at the top of her lungs that this dog's trying to attack and kill them. There's nobody to help them in sight. Just a really intense film, and just something I really enjoy watching from time to time. A fantastic film. What are your thoughts on Cujo, Wayne?
Yeah, like you said, it's terrifying. A sense of, I guess, just despair, but
Yeah,
no help coming, and what the fuck do you do? It's like at some point, it's just like you resign to your fate, or you figure it out, basically.
yeah. The Edge with Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins. That's another one. It's more of a wilderness one, but they do get attacked by a bear in it. That's why I included in this one.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely, I think, a forgot about one. Really well done, very intense. Great performances. Let's see who else is in it with him. Elle McPherson is in it. Harold Perrineau is in it. Just yeah, really really good movie. Oh, David Mamet wrote it. I did not realize that. So he's kind of a piece of shit now, but he made good movies years ago.
Mm.
All right. We'll end on Deep Blue Sea. Another shark one. We have talked about this before. Genetically mutated sharks. Making them better seems like a great idea. Just like dinosaurs. Let's make those again.
Yeah,
Uh,
just like the new Jurassic Park movie. We have how many movies about why this is a bad idea, and yet people are
exactly.
still trying to pursue it.
Yep. Exactly. It's like we get into this when we talk about robots and stuff. Never a good idea.
Yep.
And
Oh, and you bring up robots. Sorry, I'm gonna tail off here for a little bit. It's like you get the little weird, creepy dog things running around, and like
mhm.
the robots that can jump and run. I see Robert Patrick. I see it, and it terrifies me. And
I think what's good about this movie is the setup is a bit different. It's very Jaws like in the beginning. They have these kids on this boat and they get attacked by the shark, but they all live. So it shows Thomas Jane capturing the shark and bringing it back to the base of where the facility, the training facility. Um, it it really gives you a different feeling. So you're not kind of sure what you're getting at yet. Um, but then as it unfolds, it begins to be that science mixed with nature, not a great idea. And that's what you have. And this movie kind of culminates in a very interesting plot take for me is that you have the main female character kind of the one that sacrifices herself because she's the one that created the monster. So I thought that was an interesting way to go because usually it'd be a male character doing the sacrifice. But no,
breaking down gender walls, very good.
yeah, exactly. Of course, everyone knows you have the greatest Samuel L. Jackson moment, one of the greatest in film history, where he's screaming that we all need to stick together, we can't fall apart, and then he gets eaten by a shark. Probably one of the greatest on-screen deaths still to this day. And I know people don't, it's one of those movies that people either really, really like it or they really hate it. I think it's over time, this is one of those films I think has grown an audience, which is very interesting to me when you see a movie, when we grew up on a lot of 90s films that you forget about. And then like 20 years later, you're like, wait a minute, people are talking about that again. And it's weird. It's weird to me for people to talk about Deep Blue Sea as like a good movie, because when it came out, it wasn't really well received. It didn't make a ton of money. People were confused and why they keep making these movies. And then over time, it's really gained an audience, and it's been considered, I think, one of the better shark movies. Obviously, it's not going to be better than Jaws, but for as many bad shark movies they are, it's actually really well done. It has a great cast with Thomas Jane, Michael Rappaport, LL Cool J. So you have just everything that makes a really good movie. Obviously, we talked about Samuel L. Jackson, Stellan Skarsgård. So if you get a chance to watch this one, it's usually streaming on Netflix or somewhere. So check it out. It's just one of those. It's an entertaining shark movie. It's not scary per se. It's more of an action thriller, I would say, with lots of bits of tension and stuff like that. So it's definitely one we're checking out. Any other honorable mentions, Wayne, that you want to mention?
I think we need to just acknowledge Zombievers.
Oh, I love Zombievers. Zombievers is interesting because it it's another one that it takes certain characters that usually die in those type of horror films and they live, and the ones that usually live die. So I always like when they do that, where they take like the heroic ones and then they die pretty early. And then you have like I think it's like the goth girl is the one that like makes it to the end, which is very rare.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
And then Eight-Legged Freaks was always entertaining in the sense it's like, oh god,
Yes,
really?
it's another one that
Terrifying, but also
yes,
entertaining.
giant spiders. I will mention one called it's more alien, but Slither from James Gunn is
Right.
another kind of like creature feature. It's slugs, giant alien slugs. Um, that one's really well done. But yeah, Eight-Legged Freaks is another one I've been wanting to watch again lately, and it's been a while since I've seen it. I know there's one called Big Ass Spider as well,
Yeah.
which was okay. It was all right.
Yeah. And then I guess just to close it out, the documentary Grizzly Man, terrifying
Yeah,
in its own right. Just um,
if you want to be
ba-
depressed for about an hour and a half, and also kind of annoyed because the guy was very annoying. Um, Werner Herzog's Grizzly Man is a really great tale of someone who uh, loved animals maybe a bit too much and
yeah,
didn't take
that's
it
fair.
seriously. Their how deadly grizzly bears can be,
Yeah.
and it's a really like tough documentary to watch, but it's really good. Definitely something in the last 15-20 years, one of the best things Werner Herzog's done in that time frame, and he's done a
Yeah.
lot of great stuff. So
The
one of those
story of
movies that
Timothy
people,
Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huguenard, I believe is how you pronounce
yeah,
it. They're studying grizzly bears in Alaska, and in October of 2003, their grizzly deaths, pun intended on that, sorry, not to make light of it, is
you're,
caught, at
you're a
least in
horrible person.
audio, of them being eaten alive by a grizzly bear.
Yeah, and what's really cool in the documentary is obviously Werner Herzog's not going to make you listen to two people die. What he does is he listens to it and he records it. So you get
Mm-hmm.
to see Werner Herzog listening to two people get killed by a grizzly bear, which is very almost more terrifying, I think, because it's just the emotions that he goes through in that scene. Um, they do a good job of making you feel it without, because they wanted to respect the character, the person that the movie is about. They wanted to respect them and give the family the respect too, and not have a movie that glorifies their death, because it wasn't about glorifying them. It's about what's interesting about that movie is because it can very easily be like, well, that guy was an idiot, and while I think in some areas he was, I think it it's at its heart, at its core, it's a documentary about the love of nature
Yeah.
and how we can love nature, we can love the animals, we can love the things that, whether you believe God put them here or that they're just they were grown here, whatever, we can love all that stuff, but you got to keep a distance, because getting too close can mean your death, and in this case somebody else's, who he brought his fiance out there on very few trips, and of course one of the trips that he brought her out on was the one where they both passed away.
Right. I mean,
And
nature is beautiful, but needs to be respected because
right, exactly. You got to respect these. Some of these animals are killing machines, and you have to respect that. And I think um, it's definitely one uh, to watch and kind of really get into, and it's going to make you emotional. It's definitely an emotional film. I do have to mention Orca, because my wife, not that she ever listens to any of these, but Orca is one of her favorite, I think, kind of animal attack films. Definitely in the spirit of Jaws. They made several movies, which we're going to get into one of them as we get into our reviews.
of the week. Rawr.
So we got 4 movies this week. 2 of them are about animal attacks, and they're one was made definitely off the back of Jaws, and that is 1976's Grizzly. And Grizzly is a film that I've heard about. It was definitely, if you watch it, it's an independently made movie. There aren't really any stars in this film. Um, it has a very much a Jaws type setup to it. It is about a bunch of people that work in like forest rangers or whatever, essentially, and they're having, people come to, I think it's Yellowstone, is the setup, and they're coming to, have fun and sex and do drugs in the forest. But there's also
What else are you supposed to do in the forest? I
right,
mean, come on.
exactly. And all the bears are tagged, so they make it, hey, we got all these bears, but they're all tagged. We know of them. None of them are grizzly bears. Well, someone missed one, or it got there somehow. There was a grizzly bear, and
Hey, boo boo.
the grizzly bear immediately is going around attacking people, leaving dead bodies behind, burying them, coming back to eat them later. Wayne, the beginning of this movie I enjoyed because they shot it like a slasher film,
Yeah.
where you don't. It's kind of like the bear is like Jason Voorhees. You don't really see, or in this case, Pamela Voorhees from the first one. You don't really see the killer, but you see the attacks. You see the murders. Unfortunately, there are, like one of the first scenes is like someone's like head getting knocked off, and it's like really cheesy. but
Yeah.
but the way they were shot, I did enjoy it. It kind of drags in the middle for a while as they're trying to, like, you're focusing on the human characters. But unlike that's the problem with like a lot of the Friday the 13th movies. You never care about the humans. You just want to see them die. And that's kind of how this movie is. You really don't care about the humans. You just want to see the cool death scenes. Which, is cool, I think, for a good portion of the film. But just it gets bogged down by the human characters. Wayne, what were your thoughts on this film from 1976?
Same. I didn't have high expectations going into it just because,
But why?
gee. As a Bears fan there, my friend, I don't have a lot of faith in Bears right now, first and foremost. The team's in a rebuilding mode, kind of like this movie. You don't really know where it's going, but you hope something's going to happen. Like you said, oh, terrifying, kind of nice. And then it turned into a cheap 70s movie where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
I
and then
will say, though, the ending was very tense. And I really like the way they captured the bear attacking, and then obviously there's the bear arm or claw, or
yes,
the way it's shot. Like, it's attacking, but you can only
someone
see like
off screen with a big bear claw just going like this at
yeah,
somebody.
like for budgets, I give it the benefit of the doubt, and it gets shot with a high powered rifle several times, and just kind of like
Yes. My favorite is somehow there's a rocket launcher or a grenade launcher that he just pulls out at the end of the movie.
Hey, defund the forest rangers there.
Yeah, seriously, I don't think forest rangers should have that much power. Yeah, it gets blown up with a grenade launcher, which was pretty
Actually,
awesome.
forest rangers that control the bear population, they can have an AR-15. That's fine. Everybody else, no. But we won't get into that.
Yeah, it's funny too because there's this kind of love interest thing between the main guy and one of the girls, which completely gets forgotten about when he blows up the bear, and then the movie just ends, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess the movie's just over now. Yeah, I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would, but it's still not very good.
Yeah.
So I would say like a 5.5 out of 10. I mean, we're gonna get into Grizzly 2 Revenge, which has its own history.
I was at about a 3.5 myself, so
On Grizzly, okay.
Yep.
All right, well, let's get into the piece of la resistance that is.
The thing, Pete, we got to explain about Grizzly 2 is that there is footage from the 70s, and then they tried to make footage from like 2020 look like the 70s, but they didn't think to use a camera from that time apparently, and they tried to use filters, and
it was okay. So let's get into Grizzly 2 Revenge, also known as Grizzly 2 The Predator, and I think more aptly titled Grizzly 2 The Concert, because there's so much concert footage in this movie that it really just felt like you were watching a documentary about some sort of festival that was happening mixed in with bear attacks. It was so ridiculous. Okay, so Grizzly 2 was shot in 1983, but it was only released, as Wayne said, there's plenty of new footage in it, in like 2019, 2020. I think 2020 is the official release day, release year. Yeah, 2020 and 2021 actually was when it became VOD. So January,
Hmm.
so very recent. And this movie, it boasts a A-list cast of George Clooney, Laura Dern, and Charlie Sheen, who are the only three billed at the beginning of this movie, and then are killed in the first 3 minutes of this film. I will say it's a little disturbing figuring out that Laura Dern was 16 when she made this movie, appears in her bra and underwear, and also makes out with George Clooney, who was not 16 when he made this movie. He was like 22, 24, something like that. So, weird. Now I know Laura Dern was her.
What's even weirder is Charlie Sheen just right there going,
Yeah,
"Hey."
it's so. He's like, yeah, I guess I'm being a third wheel, so I'm going to go walk over to this cave over here and just sit here for like.
We know what you were doing in that cave, Charlie.
We do.
Shame. Sorry, I just had to.
No, it's good. It's good. Um, so George Clooney and Laura Dern, they're like making out. They get murdered by a bear, and then Charlie Sheen kind of comes out of the cave and is like, "What? What? Oh, oh no! Oh god!" Ah! And then he dies. And then it's Grizzly 2 Revenge, and I mean, let me see who the rest of the cast are. They actually had some other people in this movie.
Jonathan Rhys Davies is in it.
Jonathan Rhys Davies, Louise Fletcher from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Stephen Inwood is the main character. He's the sheriff or whatever, the bear patrolman, whatever you want to call him in this one. And then begins what is just a weird. So they cut to this like weird, obviously nature footage, Wayne, of bears from now. It's footage.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching a Yellowstone National Park documentary.
I was waiting for the National Geographic, anthem to come kicking in.
So that's what we cut to after the first death. And then that comes back maybe like 15, 20 minutes into the movie. They do, after another death, they just cut to a random, they do the wide shot again. It's the same bear climbing the same tree for another like 30 seconds, and then some more bear footage. Go ahead.
It's like they've got one B-roll clip off of
Yep.
stock.com.
Seriously.
They just fast forward to the clip. Oh, look, it changes here. Oh, no, use that. It's genius.
It's so, and it's like you could tell that and it's crazy because they finished filming the movie, but they must have only ended with like 40 minutes of actual film because they have to cover another 40 some minutes, which is covered by old concert footage from whatever concert, which I found this out when looking it up. So how they shot this movie is they did the festival thing. There was a band that was having a concert that night. They didn't tell the band or the audience that they were making a movie. They put another band up on stage, which is our film band. No one knew who the hell they were. They actually cut to a crowd shot of that band when they're playing, and the crowd's like, okay, like slowly clapping, like most of them aren't doing anything. And it's a big, huge sea of people. And they're just like, who the fuck are these people? Like, it's so weird. And then later on, like you said, they cut to like a band shooting a music video on stage where the lead singer keeps looking into the camera. I'm like, who are these people? And it's obviously from like 2019. Like it's
Right.
it's not old footage. It was so bizarre. And you could just tell that they forgot to shoot a whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
In my head, it was the saxophone guy from Lost Boy, but we didn't get anything close to that epic.
No, it wasn't. And like I said, it's so weird that they just like they focus on this guy singing on stage. We've never met him before. He's not part of this movie, and all of a sudden we're just like watching concert footage. It was so weird. And then that all culminates with this giant like bear fight between John Rhys Davies and the rest of the cast, where the bear then gets like set on fire by like electrical equipment, like speakers and shit. It's such a like. You don't have to watch this movie, but you kind of need to watch this movie to see how someone tries to piece something together from like 40 years ago. And it kind of reminds me of something that, and I don't want to disparage the company that you now work for again, but like something we would have had to do like, 10 years ago. I've had to take many videos from like times that I didn't work at the company and like add them into newer things. That's kind of what it reminded me of, is like, oh, hey, make this look like this. And like, well, we don't really have enough footage for a movie, so we're just going to use lots of concert B-roll. And
Let's
just,
take this NASCAR footage and
yeah,
just splice our action in.
that's one of my favorites. Had to take a NASCAR award show open with Kid Rock and then put a bunch of Monster Jam footage in it. It's just, yeah, it's a movie that has to be seen only to see how they finished it, because it really, they did not have enough for a movie. All of Louise Fletcher scenes from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest felt like outtakes, and like they were like they used a lot of stuff that wasn't meant to be in the movie. Oh, and I swear to God, too, Wayne, I'd have to go back. There's a scene with John Rhys Davis's character where I'm pretty sure it wasn't him, and they shot a guy dressed up as him from 2019, and they didn't have the shot because it looked like him, but then you look closer and it's not him. And I'm like, that shot looks like a newer shot. So they didn't even have enough B-roll of their characters in the movie to finish the movie. It's a disaster, and it's amazing that the producer sat on this for so long and was like, I have to get this movie released because it's terrible. It's barely worth watching. It's only worth watching if you like to see disasters. Um, I don't know, 1 out of 10 way. I mean, it's bad. It's truly like like it makes Grizzly look like Jaws almost.
Yeah,
Like that's how
really
bad it
does.
is.
It would have gotten a higher score for me if we could have gotten Jonathan Rhys Davis to go, toss me. Don't tell the elf.
Oh,
But
and
yeah,
by
I
the
just
way, he's playing a guy who pretends to be Native American in within the movie. He's not
I
playing a Native American. He's playing a guy who's like, I'm living, dude. So he speaks like a Native American, and it like how you would expect, like from a movie back then. It's really bad.
yeah, I wanted to try and stay away from recognizing that at all, but we should call it out.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely. I honestly just kind of forgot about it. But at some point, like, because when you first meet him, I'm like, oh, he's supposed to be Native American, which is also problematic. But then later on, they actually talk about how like he lost his family and then he went and lived the Native American lifestyle. So then it makes his voice that he puts on even more racist. I was like, Jesus Christ! Like, so he's appropriating their culture is what's
Yeah.
happening right now. Yeah, it's an awful movie that if you like awful movies, get a couple beers, get a buddy, sit down and watch it. You'll probably enjoy it, but it's not a good movie at all.
No, not at
Um,
all.
so we'll get on to our
That is the low note of the show.
yes, that is the low note. We have two movies, the two newer movies that came out, which I liked both of them pretty good actually. Let's see here. One, we'll start with the comedy one, and then we'll end on the sports drama. First up is a Pride and Prejudice inspired modern day take called Fire Island, which is a movie about homosexual men who go to an island to party up. And it's like a vacation that they do once a year, a group of friends.
Yeah, think MTV Spring Break, only it's
Yeah,
directed at a certain group of people.
exactly. Andrew Ahn directed it. Star Joel Kim Booster, who's also a comedian. He wrote the screenplay. It stars him and Bowen Yang from SNL, Conrad Ricamora, James Scully, Margaret Cho, Matt Rogers, Thomas Matos, Torian Miller, Nick Adams, and Zane Phillips. Um, it has a pretty solid Asian cast, as for the most part, the leads are all Asian, which is nice, and are, I believe, also all gay men in real life. So you're getting a lot of representation in this film when it comes to culture, and it's definitely a good movie for Pride Month, which is what we're in right now. And it's one of those films that I didn't know a lot about it when I watched it. I kind of heard it was a Pride and Prejudice like spin on it, and it works. I mean, it really does work if you um, are not a bigot and you can watch these films. Is some sex and stuff in it too, so it's definitely not for kids. But it is one of those films. It's really funny. It's got a great cast, I think. It's a very enjoyable movie. It fits in with the Crush, which we reviewed earlier this year. A lot of just like kind of those Netflix style rom com films. I mean, I think it's even a little better than that too. It's definitely got a higher production value, being made by 20th Century Fox or Searchlight or whatever it is now. owned by Disney, but that's why it was released to Hulu. I enjoyed it, Wayne. I thought it was a good film.
While it's a party comedy film, it also has a nice message to it with the whole. I don't want to say the caste class system. It's like, oh, these
It
people are
does,
beneath.
yes,
Like,
which is
they
very,
mess that a lot. It's
yeah,
like, and who are you? I think you're in the wrong house. It's like just because they don't look, they're not, you know, don't
it
fit that norm of that
yes,
house. So
which is definitely an element they took from Pride and Prejudice. Is very much a class thing in that
mhm.
film, or in that not film, that novel, which has been made into several films and miniseries and whatnot. So yeah, it's something that definitely is prevalent in that series. So it makes sense to have that here, and I think it works really well. And you have Joel Kim Booster basically plays our Elizabeth Bennet, and he is well read, but he likes to party, he likes to have a good time. And the other main character, played by, let me get his name here, Conrad Ricamora, who plays Will, um, basically Darcy, Mr. Darcy, which is from Pride and Prejudice. He is, looks, doesn't really look down on poor people. That's how it's presented, and that's how it's presented in Pride and Prejudice. He looks out for people, and he feels like some of his friends are being taken advantage of, and he doesn't want that to happen. And it just so happens that they're being taken advantage of by people of a lower class. So there is a lot of that there. Um, I really like how this movie works out. I think it's a really fun way to tell this story. It's definitely a story I think we've seen told a bunch, but it's definitely not. We have not seen it told this way before,
Yeah,
and
I
I
was
really
really
like
worried
it.
that the Charlie character is going to turn out to be a douchebag.
Yeah. Oh, for
So,
sure, for sure. Um,
and they set it up like, oh, you're not sure. At least I wasn't sure about it as the movie was going on.
no, you're right. No, they do a really good job of, especially if you don't know the story, of setting up the characters. That there's some definitely some scenes too that they took from Pride and Prejudice, which was one of my wife's favorite movies. So I've seen it, so I was able to like be like, oh, I know that scene. Um, but I really like this movie. I thought it was really well done, really well acted. I like Bowen Yang in it. I think it's a great showcase for him to show that he could do things outside of SNL, and I look forward to what he does now, because I believe he is leaving SNL. So it's going to be interesting to see where his path goes. But I thought he did a good job, and of course he did actually have a couple, like one of his long running jokes in the film was an SNL joke, actually, which I thought was kind of funny, being that that's where he's from.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely, I think if you're looking for a good Pride Month movie, check it out. It's on Hulu. I would say 7.5 or an 8 out of 10, Wayne. I did enjoy this movie quite a bit. It'll be one I definitely end up showing to my wife at some point, but not while we have the grandkids in town, just because it does have some inappropriate sexual scenes in it, and would be inappropriate in any film. So it's just
Yeah,
uh, one of those. It is definitely an adult R-rated comedy,
yeah.
but it
Anytime
is a good
anything
time.
consisting of group sex or anything like that,
Yeah,
regardless of the participants.
exactly.
Yeah. And
So what's your ranking on it?
I was right there around a 7.5, like you are. You
Good.
know.
All right. And next, I think we have, in my opinion, the better movie of the week. Um, not because I like, movies that have deal with basketball a lot, but I do. I mean, it's something we did an entire episode on it with our friend Andy Rohr.
As everybody knows, I can't stand basketball anymore, and this actually made me appreciate it a little bit more. We're talking about the new Adam Sandler, not drama,
I would
action
say
drama.
drama, yeah, sports drama. Yeah, it's a sports drama.
It is Hustle. It is directed by Jeremiah Zager, written by Will Fetters and Taylor Materine, excuse me, starring Adam Sandler as Stanley Sugarman, Queen Latifah as his wife Teresa Sugarman. Uh, is it Joncho or Juancho?
Juancho Hernan Gomez.
Okay. Ben Foster, Kenny Smith, Robert Duvall has a small part in this, and anytime
Yes.
we get to see the great legendary Robert Duvall, I'm interested.
Yes.
And then you've got Jaleel White, the character famous for portraying Steve Urkel on Family Matters, is in this for a
Yep.
bit. And then Dr. J. Julius Irving has a role.
Heidi Gardner from SNL.
You know,
She plays the daughter.
Jordan
Um,
Hull plays Queen Latifah and Adam Sandler's daughter, Alex. She's a very cute and compelling supportive character in this.
yes.
All right, so here's a little synopsis breakdown. A basketball scout discovers a phenomenal street ball player in Spain and sees the prospect as his opportunity. And we'll leave it right there because it kind of gives away stuff. So, but go ahead,
This.
sir. I relinquish the rest of my time.
Oh no.
Sorry, I've been watching some political TV.
The Congress, the hearings. Yeah. So first off, I love movies that take NBA players and make them act. I thought this was definitely.
Better than Space Jam.
Yes. Yes.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
I'm on record. Space
Oh,
Jam 2, of course.
I think it's better than both Space Jams, but um, it the basketball players do a good job. Juancho Hernan Gomez, who plays the main character Bo Cruz, I think did a pretty good job being acting in a film. And then Anthony Edwards, he just wrapped up his second season. He was I think he was rookie of the year last year or close to it. He was the number 1 draft pick last year. He plays
Talk to
Kermit.
me, Goose.
Yes,
Talk to me, Goose.
not that Anthony Edwards. He plays Kermit Wilt Washington, who is the top prospect or one of the top prospects who wants to prove himself.
He did a
And him
great
and
job proving a hateable character.
he did. He did a really good job. That's what I thought. Like he was kind of, I think, the one that shined out of the 2 NBA actors in this film. Not that Wancho wasn't good, but I think Anthony Edwards actually did a really good job. So I'm wondering if in his future he'll have, if acting will be something that he dives into, because it was very believable. Um, and then of course Ben Foster plays the son of Robert Duvall, and he's he becomes the new owner who co-owner with his sister, played by Heidi Gardner, and but they let him run the team, and he does not like Adam Sandler's character because Adam Sandler's character is basically the son that Robert Duvall's character never had, and that
Yeah.
you could tell that rubs Ben Foster's character the wrong way. Vince Merrick. It has to do with another kind of class thing too, Wayne, because it's not really. I guess class isn't necessarily, but I mean he is a poor kid who's had to overcome a lot of things. The Wancho's character, Bo Cruz, and he did have an assault charge that was levied in Spain, which is something that gets brought up throughout the movie, and that kind of goes to character issues, which we always talk about in the NBA. I mean, Kobe Bryant had to deal with it, Randy Moss had to deal with it, and it was, and I'm talking in their draft when they were drafted. Randy Moss, the reason he fell so far to Minnesota was because there were some issues with his character, and he turned out to be one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. So, there are people forget, I think, that these guys are kids, and kids make mistakes and they grow up, and and I think that's a good part of this movie where they show um, how you can get past stuff like that. And it goes to Adam Sandler's character as well, as he has some of that kind of stuff in his past. And him basically, the whole movie is about him trying to reconcile with that past and what he could have had.
Yep.
And I think the film does a really good job of dealing with that, of showing us how to overcome things like that. Now, obviously, the character of Bo Cruz is given a lot of chances, which not everybody is given as many chances. So that's something that doesn't happen for everybody. But it shows you that I think the idea behind it is that it should.
Yeah.
One
A
person,
lot of people go to bat for him in this film.
right? Exactly, and it just goes to show though that like one thing from your past shouldn't ruin your entire life, and I think that's what the kind of point, the reason why so many people step up for him is because they all believe that. Um, I think it was interesting that Kenny Smith did not play himself. He played a former Adam Sandler teammate called Leon. I think it would have been interesting if they had Kenny Smith play Kenny Smith, who decides to leave his hosting gig at the NBA TNT and go be an agent. I think that would have been interesting if they would have kept him as himself.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see him play a character. Let's see. I'm trying to think of who else was in this that I liked. Like Trae Young makes an appearance. A lot of NBA players, current NBA players, make appearances. Old NBA players make appearance. Mark Jackson makes an appearance. But it's a really well-made movie. It showcases Adam Sandler's acting ability, which he does have, which people, refuse to believe. But when
Yep.
he does something like Uncut Gems, or he does this or Reign Over Me, he really does show that he can command the screen and do
Yeah.
a fantastic job. And I think hopefully, because this movie is very well received both critically and by the audience, that this opens up more doors for him. Not even like he could open the doors, because Adam Sandler produces all his own movies, so like
Yeah.
he can give himself more roles like this. And I
I'm going
hope,
to go ahead and say it right now. I hope he never does another stupid comedy again because he needs to stay in the dramatic world because
and he got to be funny in it. His
yeah,
character was humorous. It just wasn't a slapstick comedy, it.
yeah, it was funny without being stupid, if you
Yes,
will.
exactly. And easily one of his best movies in years.
Yep.
Right up there with Uncut Gems, is one of the best things he's done in a long time. Very crowd pleasing. Think like Coach Carter, something
Mhm.
like that. It very much Remember the Titans. It has that feel to it. The underdog coming through, beating out the big asshole, basically Ben Foster, which he played. My wife's like, man, he always plays these parts. I'm like, yeah, because he's really good at it.
Yeah,
Like,
he's got that. He's just got that face.
yeah, he does. And Wayne, I saw his bald head, and I was like, you know what? He'd be a really good Lex Luthor.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing.
So he
Um,
would he would nail
yeah,
Lex Luthor. So DC, if
I,
you're listening, Lex Luthor.
yeah. I really appreciate just the fact that they didn't make Adam Sandler to be the savior of the movie. He definitely had his own issues and struggles, the shit he was going through as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they'll go the easy route. It's like he's going to set the path for you, young
Yes.
one.
I mean, this movie's very real. Like it
Yep.
feels like everyone had to kind of work their way through all their shit, and including him and his wife. Their relationship isn't perfect, but they love each other. So they're. I like that too. That there was never a question.
I loved them as a couple. I thought it was completely believable with just the real, just like you think you're gonna get some now and you pull that mess.
Yeah. Well, and I think Queen too. What's good about her is, again, people forget because she's in a lot of comedies that she can actually act.
Yep.
So it was nice to see both of them kind of flex that muscle a little bit. And I'm not saying I'm not saying they give tour de force performances or anything, but they give really good dramatic performances in a film that requires it. And
Yep.
it's a really entertaining film. I really liked it a lot. It's probably one of my favorite films that I've seen this year. I'm definitely going to revisit it because movies like this are just enjoyable to me. Just
Hmm.
gives you that tingly moment where you're just like, I just feel good watching this film. All right, so I would say an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. Wayne, I really like this movie a lot, and I think people should watch it.
Yep. I was at an 8.
8. Okay,
Yep.
so we're similar path there.
Yep.
That one you can catch on Netflix. Fire Island you can watch on Hulu. Grizzly 2 on Amazon, and then Grizzly was on Freevee and Tubi, I believe. So if you're
Yeah.
interested in any of the films this week, go ahead, Wayne.
I was just gonna say, don't even bother the Grizzly movies. You have other options.
You have many other options. If you hate yourself right now, go watch the Grizzly films. You'll feel a little bit better. All right. So it's been a while, Wayne. Anything you've been watching that you want to talk about?
I have been watching some stuff. Let me get my watch list up here. So, uh, in the 3 weeks or so since we've been together, a lot of cool stuff has come out. I'm going to start with the Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney Plus, the latest adventures of the embattled Jedi. Um, they do a fantastic job with PTSD and just anxiety, as Obi-Wan Kenobi is in hiding. He is protecting or watching over the young Luke Skywalker, and he is once again called upon to be a Jedi hero, and he's reluctant to do so. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's not your typical action adventure Star Wars laser
Mhm.
swords type thing where there's lightsabers and force powers and everything, but this is really a tale. It's like really a story of woe, if you will, or anxiety. And it started off really strong. The last episode was lackluster, in my opinion, but we've got 2 episodes left of this limited series, and I'm excited to see what they do. One of the interesting bright spots is the viciousness of Hayden Christensen as Darth Vader once again. So, and it was nice to hear that the Darth Vader voice is a blend of both James Earl Jones and Hayden Christensen to kind of bring it to life. So,
Nice.
yeah, I won't say anything else because I would like everybody to see it and talk about it. Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. Along with Obi-Wan Kenobi premiering, Stranger Things season 4 also came out, and this is interesting. It's been three years since season 3.
Yep, crazy.
Each episode is an hour to an hour and a half long, so they're basically mini movies.
Exactly.
And being the sadistic, hedonistic, whatever you want to call me, I power through the entire episode in one day.
Wow.
Yeah. I was feeling it afterwards, though, but it's compelling enough because there's some stuff happening. Basically, without giving too much away, the Hawkins gang is split up into different areas around the world, 3 different groups.
Mm-hmm.
And while it's good, it's also kind of like, okay, we haven't seen this group in 2 episodes. What the hell's going on? So a lot of stuff going on. I do appreciate it, but lots of new characters, almost borderline watering things down too much. But again, I'm trying to be vague out of courtesy. I did enjoy it. The final 2 episodes are going to drop July 1st, so we'll see how season 4 is going to wrap up, heading into the series finale season 5, next year, maybe early 2024, depending on. This series is one of the most expensive,
yes,
ever made. So there's a lot of post work on these. So give them time, let it do it right, but definitely something to check out, definitely something to dive into. If you're a Stranger Things fan, I don't think there's too many complaints. So
yeah, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. I love the villain, Vecna, this year, which is all practical effects, which is really cool to see because it's a guy dressed up. I won't give anything away. Really, really, really great season, or great first part or whatever, because it's season 4, part 1. But it's set, like you said, each one's almost like a film, and the last one's an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And I heard the season finale is going to be like over 2 hours, so it's it's like
the
insane.
Final 2 episodes have a runtime of almost 3.5 hours, I think.
Is it just so? It's just 2 episodes. That's it.
Yes.
Okay, I see. That I was not aware of.
Or close to 4 hours, I think they said in total.
Nice.
So yeah, looking forward to it. Very good times.
For sure. It'll be. I think it'll be awesome. I love this show. It's one of my favorite shows on TV. That's one thing I did while I was sick, as I had already watched 5 of the episodes, so I watched the last 2 while I was sick this last week. I started season 3 of The Boys. I watched all 3 episodes that released on the day that they came out.
Yep, that is my next watch as soon as I am done with Californication, my current watch. So,
dude, all I can say is, have you finished 1 and 2 of Boys?
Yes. I actually want to rewatch both of those before I do 3, I don't know if I'll be able to
when you watch season 3, episode 1, we need to talk, because there's something that happens to them in that show. They keep pushing the boundaries, and like the boundaries of craziness and what you could do on actual television. And I love it.
I'm gonna watch episode 1 today because now my interest is peaked. So all right, hang on. Hank Moody can go to the side. I'll finish Californication later.
It's so good. It's so good. Let's see. I showed the kids Princess Bride, which I was happy to show them, and they enjoyed it. Lana and Cassie really enjoyed it, and Donovan, I think, liked it a little bit. It's different for him still.
As both our children are entering their teen years, everything is
exactly
lame.
Exactly. Knight Riders is one of my Ed Harris watches. Very interesting film, kind of like a LARPing film about motorcyclists who put on a medieval time show in 1981. It's like a King Arthur adaptation within a King Arthur adaptation, because they're adapting King Arthur in the movie, but Ed Harris's character also acts like he's actually the king. So it's a different thing here. It's weird. It's not what I expected, but it was actually really good. It's on Tubi. It is 2.5 hours long, which is way longer than I thought it was going to be. But I think worth it just because it's different. Um, Popcorn I watched. It's like a dark horror comedy from the 90s. I thought that was really cool. I finished Under the Banner of Heaven, the TV show with Andrew Garfield about the Mormon murders. Really good limited series. Another limited series on Netflix called Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey, which is about more Mormons. That one is about Warren Jeffs, who's in prison right now for child rape, I believe, or something along those lines. He's a real piece of shit, obviously. China Moon, my most recent Ed Harris watch. That was decent. It's like a kind of like an erotic thriller from the 90s, which is, as we talked about with Andy Rohr in that one episode that we talked about, the Ben Affleck movie, a forgotten about genre. It's decent. It's got Ed Harris, Madeline Stowe, and Benicio del Toro. So it was weird seeing him like super young, even before he did Usual Suspects. Yeah, so decent flick. And then I did take Donovan to see the newest Jurassic World film, Jurassic World Dominion. I know people have their thoughts about that one. For me, Jurassic Park is like the one great movie from the franchise. The rest of them, and I don't even love. It's not even one of my favorites, but it is. I'll admit, it's a really good movie. The rest of them are just a mixture of bad to okay. And this one was okay. It's entertaining. My son really liked it because of the new dinosaurs, and there isn't as much dinosaur action as I think people were hoping for. But there is a really fucking cool scene, a raptor chase scene that chases Chris Pratt's Owen through Malta. A really badass scene. One of my favorite scenes of the franchise, to be honest. Just really came together really well. It was cool seeing it in the theaters, very loud, very explosive, lots of dinosaur roars and whatnot. I enjoy it because he enjoys it. That's one of those things is like being a movie buff and going to see movies. I used to go see, I've talked about before, I would go see movies that I wouldn't even really want to see with my buddy Jason, just because that's what we did. We'd go to the movies. And the same thing goes for this one. Like, it's nice just to go to the theater and have my son be excited to watch this film. So I recommend it for that. If you have kids around his age, he's 12, that like dinosaur movies, definitely go see it. I think you'll enjoy it just if they enjoy it. Is it a good movie? Probably not, but it does things that I think you want Jurassic movies to do. So definitely check that out. All right.
Does Chris Pratt get eaten yet?
No, unfortunately not.
The show goes on.
It was great too to see Ian Malcolm and Dr. Grant and Dr. Statler back together again. That was a lot of fun, and they're in like almost the whole movie, so that's another thing. It's not like a trick, like they're barely in it.
Good.
Laura Dern and Alan Grant, I'm drawing a blank on his actual name, are in it from the beginning, and then Dr. Ian Malcolm, when he comes in, he's basically in it for the rest of the movie. All right, nice. So news and notes. There's a lot here just because it's been a couple weeks. All right. Rachel Ziegler joins Hunger Games prequel. Amanda Peet joins Joshua Jackson and Lizzie Kaplan in Fatal Attraction Paramount Plus series. Christopher Landon, director of Happy Death Day 1 and 2 and Freaky, will now direct Arachnophobia remake produced by James Wan. Uma Thurman to play U.S. President in Amazon Prime's rom-com Red, White, and Royal Blue. Will Arnett voicing Sweet Tooth in Twisted Metal TV series on Peacock, while AEW Samoa Joe will be playing the character in the live-action form. Richard Cabral will also star in Twisted Metal, playing Stephanie Beatrice's brother, Loud, as she will play the main character, Quiet. Raised by Wolves, canceled after 2 seasons at HBO Max, Sarah Silverman joins Bradley Cooper in Netflix's Leonard Bernstein film Maestro. Dermot Mulroney joins cast of Scream 6. All of Us Are Dead officially renewed for a second season on Netflix. Neve Campbell officially not returning for Scream 6 due to the salary disagreement. John Hamm, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Juno Temple to star in Fargo Season 5. Mark Hamill voicing Merv Pumpkinhead in Netflix Sandman series. What We Do in the Shadows already renewed for a 5th and 6th season before Season 4 debuts. Borat's Maria Bakalova joins Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in a key role. Brad Pitt and Top Gun Maverick director Joseph Kosinski's Formula One racing film bought by Apple and record deal that allows for a 30-day minimum theatrical release, which can go up to 60 days based on performance. The first of its kind for a streaming service, while other mainstream studios have been practicing this format over the last year. Joker 2 officially on the way. Jason Bateman exits Artemis with Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans as the director. because of creative differences. Anthony Hopkins voicing Battle Robot in Snyder's Rebel Moon. Jason Reitman executive producing Ghostbusters animated series for Netflix. He also announced that there will be an animated movie and a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife. Becky 2, The Wrath of Becky is happening with Lulu Wilson returning to star and Sean William Scott playing the new villain. If you haven't seen Becky, seek it out. It's a movie about a teenager who takes down neo-Nazis. One of them is played by Kevin James. So this time she's going to fight up against Sean William Scott. Thunderbolts movie officially happening with Jake Schreier directing. That's basically like the Suicide Squad for Marvel. Many possible lineups are available. One being teased right now is Yelena, Black Widow's sister, Baron Zemo, Ghost from the Ant-Man sequel, Taskmaster, Abomination, U.S. Agent, and Winter Soldier. The Boys officially renewed for season 4 just after the debut of the first 3 episodes. Cobra Kai creators working on Duke Nukem movie. Uma Thurman and Henry Golding joined the Old Guard 2 with Charlize Theron. Lindsay Beer rebooting Sleepy Hollow. Made for Love has been canceled after 2 seasons at HBO Max. Releases coming up. Joey King's The Princess hits Hulu July 1st. Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe streams June 23rd on Paramount+. Doctor Strange 2 hits Disney Plus June 22nd. I Am Groot debuts August 10th on Disney+. Mike Flanagan's The Midnight Club hits Netflix October 7th. The Sandman hits Netflix August 5th. A League of Their Own hits Prime August 12th. Deaths over the last couple weeks. Jeff Gladney, cornerback for the Arizona Cardinals, originally drafted by the Vikings, dead at 25 from car crash. Former Bear and Cowboys running back Marion Barber, dead at 38. KK Bollywood singer, dead at 53. Brad Johnson from Always and Melrose Place, dead at 62. Paul Vance, singer, dead at 92. Alec John Such, founding member of Bon Jovi, dead at 70. Trouble was a rapper. He was shot dead during a home invasion at 34. Julie Cruz, who was in Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks as the singer, dead at 65. So rest in peace to all those that passed away. Thank you for listening to us, guys. We do appreciate it. Wayne, any final thoughts for this week's episode?
It's nice to be back. It was nice to talk to you about some of the things that we love the most. Yeah. That's the movies and television.
That's what we talk about here. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to a new episode of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hey, everybody, we're all gonna get laid.